Hi folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. Man, is it nice out today. Whew. We have been having some crazy weather here in the Ozarks, and I know most of the country has experienced, or at least a lot of you, have experienced lots and lots of rain and a very wet winter, and so have we. And man, it's like 62 out, I believe. It is really nice, and I'm telling you, I could get used to this, except over the next couple of days, they're calling for lots and lots of more rain. So you enjoy it while it lasts. It's a good laundry day when you do laundry the old-fashioned way and you have to hang it out to dry. You enjoy days like this so that you can get lots and lots of laundry done. I have made a couple of videos on this subject already, so I'm not trying to like beat a dead horse or continue a subject that's been talked enough about, but I think there's still a lot more to talk about, and that's what's going on with Venezuela right now. I've talked about how I think it's going to become bigger than what it seems, that it's not just going to be about them, that it's eventually going to involve us and other countries, because the global powers are already lining up, picking sides of who wants to pick apart Venezuela and have control down there. And so I think that there's definitely more going on and that will happen there. But even if that's not the case, you and I can be learning and getting a little bit of a glimpse of what we might and most likely will at some point in the future, go through in an SHTF, a major meltdown of our society, economic collapse, government, revolution, takeover, EMP, pandemic, breakdown of supply lines, whatever it is that might happen or that you foresee could happen. We can get a good idea of just how society will handle it by looking at what's going on in Venezuela. They're falling apart down there. They have had blackouts for days now, internet outages, food supplies have already, they've been having problems with their food supplies to the point that there just isn't any. Medical supplies, riots, people attacking, killing each other, fighting each other over scraps because they're starving to death. And we can sit back and kind of see what's going on. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you and I can do to help the situation. But we can sit back and see what's going on down there and kind of use it as a learning tool of what we might experience if something similar happens in our lifetime, in our country, in our lives. I know that Venezuela is not comparable to the United States, and I know that there's people that listen that aren't in the United States, but that's where I'm at, so that's kind of what I'm comparing. I get it that you're comparing apples to oranges, but Venezuela has the potential and has had the potential to be a really powerhouse of a nation. They have the resources. They have the world's largest oil reserves. They at one time had a very good agricultural industry, and they have the potential there to have, with coffee and cocoa beans and things like that. But because of the socialist regime that's, been in power now for a long time, they once were, if you go back, and I'm not going to go through all the details of the history, you can look it up yourself. They were, a fledgling country, then the oil reserves, were discovered and started using, and they were building up their economy, and they actually became a prominent, nation in the world because of the oil reserves. And then socialism, communism light came into the country, and they basically plundered all the money on these social programs. And it's just snowballed into what they have now, to where they're even though it's not being called, it is pretty much a civil war is what's going on. I mean, it's just, the country is falling apart. And so it's even though it's not an identical situation of what would happen or could happen here in the U.S., it is certainly something that we can look at in modern times and see how another nation that's going through a true SHTF, how the people are handling it, how it's affecting them, and use it to learn. It's a tragedy. You know, it's a tragedy for the lives of the people that are enduring this, and the lives that's lost, and the families that are being destroyed, and I do have sympathy for that. But on the same note, we can also learn from that. You know, their food supplies, and I'm not going into the details of how it's happening. I understand there's a whole politics behind it. There's of the people blaming different sides of why there's no food or why the power's out, and to me that's not the point of this video. This video is really of seeing what's going on and using it as a learning experience, even though we're not experienced it, someone else is, and we're able to learn from it, and it kind of can help us prepare and realize what could happen. They've had food shortages for quite a while, for several years now, and it's been amplified recently to the point that we're not talking, in the past few years, there's been footage and images of people that they've lost weight. I mean, these people are getting pretty skinny down there because they don't have enough food to maintain their nutrition levels that they need. Medical supplies have been in demand because they're scarce, but it's gotten to the point now that they're not just not getting enough to maintain a healthy body, they're not getting enough food to actually thrive, to survive. They're dying of starvation. People are dying because they're not getting the medications that they need. There's been power outages throughout the country in different regions, complete blackouts. And to me, it doesn't really matter why it's happening. It's the fact that it has happened. It's because their nation is in chaos. They are going through an apocalypse within their own borders. And we're seeing, right before our eyes, how they're handling it and how the people are handling it. And push aside the politics of it, just how the individuals are handling it, how people are turning on each other. Of course, the people in power are using their authority and to, they say, keep the peace, but of course it's not. They're going in now. You got to realize, I mentioned this in the past video, that seven-ish years ago, they basically confiscated privately owned firearms, weapons in that country. And so now, of course, the government's the only one that has them. The people aren't able to defend themselves. They're not getting the food, the medicines. There's no power. They don't have supplies. They're starving. They're dying. And they're coming into the cities in protests and hoping that they can get something. Well, the only one that has any power as in guns is the government. And so people are dying because of that. So it's something that we can sit back and learn, and it should give us an idea of, to a certain extent, of what we could expect here. I get it. It's apples and oranges. And, the people down there may be different than the people up here, but you know what? They're human beings, okay? And in desperation, people, regardless of what nationality or what country they're from or anything, in desperation, people are going to pretty much react the same way. And so that's what we're seeing going on down there. And so I want to encourage you that if you're not staying on top of what's going on in Venezuela, to keep it on your radar for various reasons, this being one of them, so that you can see what's going on and like, okay, this is kind of what I need to prepare for, mentally prepare for, physically prepare for. But also keep it on your radar that of what's going on, because I think it's going to involve us a lot more. We're already starting to get involved. It's mostly all verbal right now between us and Cuba and China and Russia, but there's definitely a lot going on down there, and we need to stay on top of it. Also, it's also something that you know, if you have people in your life, maybe your children, or other family members that's, you know, getting on this new bandwagon here in the United States of, you know, well, we need more socialism and, you know, we need this communism light kind of thing, you know, say, well, why don't you sit and watch what's going on in Venezuela right now? Because what's going on in Venezuela has happened in just about every other country that adopted communism. They went through a revolution that happened similar to this, you know, of war and supply lines being stopped and famine and, you know, starvation and all this kind of stuff. This is what that ideal brings. And it's a pretty scary and sad thing that while we were once the bastion of freedom, that we stood up, and whether we did the right thing all the time or not, we did it for the greater good of the right thing, of going around and stomping out communism on this planet to the best of our ability. And here we are just a couple of decades later, and we've got a near, you know, a large percentage of the younger generation actually wanting it. They're begging for it. They've bought this lofty, you know, soft idea that, oh, communism is great, and we're, you know, it's going to be nice and wonderful for us, and everyone will be equal, and we'll all have what we want, and we'll all be healthy and freely educated, and blah, blah, blah. Look at what's going on in Venezuela right now. Look at what happened in Cuba, you know, all over the place. North Korea, Russia, of course. See what's going on. And I know, you know, even in China, I mean, a lot of people, well, they have a great economy. Well, yeah, for some of the people in China, they benefit from it, but there's a lot of people in China that don't. Anyways, I'm getting off on a different subject here. The point is keep an eye on what's going on in Venezuela, if nothing more than as a learning experience, that you can see how quickly a country, and even though it's, okay, I get it. They've been going through this for a while, but how quickly it's just snowballed to the point that people are killing each other on the streets over food, over you know, medicines. They have no electricity, no internet, which I know a lot of you are like, yeah, who cares? They don't have internet. That's a major thing nowadays. So much of everything is controlled and supported and stuff because of the internet. And when, as I was reading, when they're at, you know, 96 to 98% of the country is without internet, that's a big deal. That if the United States, if that happened to the United States, I mean, it would be like Mad Max tomorrow, if 98% of the country was without internet. So as much as many of you might say, well, who cares? That's a big deal. We can learn, excuse me, we can learn from what's going on down there and see and start to get an idea of how to become a little bit more prepared. Not because we watched some movie that may or may not actually be true, but because we're watching a real life SHTF happen, unfold right before our eyes. So keep alert and keep watching what's going on in Venezuela, because the news media is like sort of covering it, and I think it's because they don't want you to know and be aware of what's happening. All right, thank you all for watching, and I am going to go enjoy the rest of this beautiful warm day out, because it's going to be wet for the next few. All right, thanks for watching. Catch you later.